morning. My name is Stu Crucell. I work with the Corporate and International Relations Division within the Office of External Relations. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first colloquium of the day and to welcome you to one of the new state-of-the-art classrooms that we have here in our new building. I especially want to note a special thanks to Spencer and Patricia Standish for their donation to the school, which made this classroom possible. And I note that among the high technology, I'd like to welcome our fellow alum and guests who are in the simulcast room participating with us today. And I would further note that this session will be taped and available for you to review or put on YouTube, send to your friends, whatever you decide over the course of the summer. There are a couple housekeeping things that I did want to mention. One is because we are recording this, when we get to the Q&A part of the session, I would ask that you would wait for myself or my colleague to bring you a mic so that it can be properly recorded. I would ask that you turn off your cell phones so that we don't pick up the ringing on that. And finally, if you are registered for the luncheon with the laureates, because of the tight timeline, when this is over, if you would sort of head straight out to the tent to do that. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce somebody who is very familiar to you who have been around Sloan for the last 10 years, S.P. Kothari. He is, I think, one of the great representations of what makes Sloan what it is by marrying that mens in manus. In addition to being a leading academic, he has a career in the private sector with Barclays, Charles River Investments, and others. And I personally, early in my career, got to see SP's contribution to making those connections when we were out in California at Google headquarters. And thanks to his work, we were able to put together a program that brought together academics and practitioners. So it was great to see as an early person. So SP, I will turn it over to you and your set of deans, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you. Welcome to the first colloquium. Delighted to be here and with your participation. MIT Sloan has been a worldwide leader in management education for a long time. But as all of us know, MIT Sloan has always been in Cambridge. And we thought that as the world is becoming such a small global place, that it is important that management education, we not only spread from Cambridge, but have some avenue of spreading management education around the globe. And with that in mind, for more than 15 years now, with the vision of Lester Thoreau and individuals like Alan White, we went abroad and set out on collaborating with a number of schools in China, Korea, and most recently in Turkey. And today what I want to bring to you is that the desire for reaching out globally was in part so that both our students and faculty, they get an exposure to corporate practices and cultures around the globe, because they are different. Let me give you an example. Some of you might have heard this example, but let me give you an example. In the US, the culture is that everything is permitted unless it is prohibited. But then there are places like Italy and France where everything is permitted. Just everything is permitted. Okay. But then there are places like Russia where everything is prohibited, including that which is permitted. And then there are places like Brazil where everything is permitted, including that which is prohibited. So in that sense, there is variation in practices around the globe. And we thought that what better way to expose both our faculty and students to the practices that take place around the globe than having some collaboration with schools, leading universities from different parts of the world. And I bring to you today 3 deans from our collaborating institutions. And I will make introductions for the 3 deans, and then I will ask them to make some remarks about what they see as the challenges facing corporations and young management professionals from their vantage point. But before I begin, let me also take this opportunity to thank. We are delighted that Joan Porter and family members are here in presence, and we appreciate their generosity and their commitment to furthering management education at Sloan as well as globally. Thank you. So by way of introduction, if I made the full introduction, I think I will take up the entire hour. So I will do the really mini version of my introductions. And first, sitting in the middle here is Nakia Boysigiller. She's Dean from Sabanci School of Management, Sabanci School of Management in Turkey, and our most recent collaborator. We are very proud of that collaboration. Nakia is Dean of the Sabanci School, and her research, teaching, and leadership activities reflect her interest in enhancing the effectiveness of multicultural work groups and cross-border collaborations. In addition to being a fellow of the Academy of International Business, she serves on the advisory boards of numerous organizations, including the Cyprus International Institute of Management, the European Advisory Council of Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business, and Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey. She previously held leadership positions at AIB and the Academy of Management. To my far left is Zhongwen Liu. Zhongwen is Dean of Fudan University, China, and founding director of the university's Chinese Marketing Research Center. His teaching and research interests include internet marketing in China, services marketing, corporate reorganization, and change management. He is the author or co-author of 4 books and has published more than 60 research papers. Liu holds various leadership positions, including Vice President of the Chinese Society for Management Modernization, Vice Chairman of the National MBA Education, and Council Member of Association of Asia Pacific Business Schools. He is also an honorary professor at the University of Hong Kong and Norwegian School of Management. To my immediate left is Dean Klemkowski. Robert C. Klemkowski is the founding dean of the Graduate School of Business at Sungkyunkwan University in Seoul, Korea. Did you see how smoothly I said that, that word, so it takes practice. It's not easy. So the new school is collaborating with MIT, and prior to joining there, he's the Fred T. Green Professor Emeritus of Finance at the Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. He served as chairman of the finance department over there for a number of years. His research interests are in financial markets, and he was a founder of the Wellington Asset Management in 1989, and currently is a trustee of the TrendStar Investment Trust, which manages mutual funds. He's also the first non-Korean to serve as a director of the Korea Stock Exchange. We are delighted, we are honored, we are privileged to have 3 distinguished panelists here. And now let me request Nakia to make some opening remarks. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you, SP, very much. I'm delighted to be here. And the question we've been asked is, what do we see as the major challenges facing corporations in our country and the region? I would like to address those in two separate sets of issues, if I may. One are the micro issues, those facing companies in Turkey, and then the more macro institutional issues. When we look at micro issues, Turkey is a vibrant country, 6% growth rate over the past 6 years. So compared to the European Union and many countries, I think, except for India and China, we're a rapid growth country. Companies are facing a couple of major challenges. One is what is called professionalization, which is code word for, gee, can we get control away from the family members and put it into the hands of professional managers? Because a large portion of our economy are family-held corporations, and they're grappling with becoming more professional managers, if you will. So I see that a lot at my school. Innovation is a key concern. Turkey is a relatively high-cost labor country that we can't really compete on the basis of cost. We need to become much more innovative and have more value-added products, if you will. And so innovation is something from the government down where a lot of people are worried about increasing R&D investments and ensuring that we begin to see global Turkish brands. And so that's a huge issue. Internationalization. Turkey, the population is 75 million. Up until 1980, the country was relatively a closed market. And so initially, Turkish companies were able to take advantage only of the local market. But since the early 2000s, there's a realization that they need to grow, they need to internationalize. So I'm lucky my area of expertise is one that's very much of interest these days, which is how do we succeed outside of our local market. But what I'd like to really turn to are the macro issues. So on one hand, you see this country that is 16th in terms of the size of its economy. But when you look at things like where we are on the Global Competitiveness Index that IMD puts together on a yearly basis, and we're the Turkish collectors of data for that study, we're only 61st. When you look at the Human Development Index, we're 88th. So there's this disconnect between how well the economy is doing, which is incredibly vibrant. You feel it. This is one reason why people love to come to Istanbul. It's a young country. 60% of the population is under the age of 30. You feel that vibrancy. The economy is booming. And yet we've got these major challenges on the social side in terms of sustainability issues, in terms of how strong our democracy is. We're facing an election now in June. We have a history of free and fair elections. One might not always like the way the elections turn out, but that's part of what a democracy is about. But right now we're talking about looking at that and changing the Constitution to give more representation for minority groups. This is something that the business community is intensely worried about as to where those constitutional changes are going to go. And so we see very much a connection between the political and the economic as being important. And so I guess that's where I'd like to finish. And one of your points, S.P., in the question was how much these issues are local, regional, and how much they are really universal. And I think the notion of the political and the economic, how is globalization benefiting everyone around the world? We have at our university a course in globalization because we want students to understand how we can make globalization something that benefits not the few, but the majority. And that's something that we take very seriously at our university. And I think that that's a challenge for all of us. I think that's a challenge in the U.S. and developed countries as business sometimes goes outside of the United States. Understanding how the political and the economic connect, how globalization works, how democracy works. These are important issues that the business community needs to get involved in and does get involved in, I find, in our country.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikia. We will have Q&A after all three get a chance to make their opening remarks. Dean Liu.
Okay, thank you, SP. I'm very pleased to be here to share with you what's going on in China. Actually, we are also facing a similar challenge to Turkey, but we still have very different situations. The biggest challenge is how we can maintain the sustainable growth, especially when the whole global economy still cannot step out of the crisis. Because in the past years, China actually relied on export-driven for the growth. But now, when the global market is shrinking, and also we face a lot of kind of the invisible trade barrier. So the Chinese government is trying to change the growth model from the export-driven to the domestic market-driven. And also, we try to decrease our investment and try to trigger the demand for the Chinese economy. So that's a real challenge we face because the whole economic structure actually still is very labor-intensive, manufacturing-oriented, and also most small medium companies relies on the distributor or the intermediate for the export or for the local sales. So how we can help the manufacturing sector to upgrade their business models, upgrade their value chain system. This is the real challenge we are facing in the Chinese economy. And also, the big challenge, probably a little bit much bigger challenge is how we can develop talents to meet both global challenge and also domestic challenge. Because the Chinese market already is very open for last 20 years. All the big players from international business community already are in China. So in China already we are facing the global or international competition. So when we talk about development of the talents, we always encourage those professionals, entrepreneurs to develop both skills. And one is how to understand the global economy or international business practice. On the other side, they have to build up their local insights to develop their comparative advantage of understanding the Chinese situation when they compete with the foreign investors. So now we have some chances of investing in the other countries, but no, we don't have good talents who actually are capable of competing in the global market. So that's the real challenge we have. Actually, also in terms of the total GDP, actually we are the second largest already. But in terms of the GDP per capita or the quality of the economy, we are still the lowest among the whole countries in the world. So how we can really upgrade our economy, our economic structure, that's a real challenge actually the whole government and also industries and also the business schools are facing. And now in China, we actually are carrying out some new policies to trigger the domestic market. From the government perspective, we are talking about reduce the personal income tax and also to raise the personal income and also help the poor people to improve their life quality and also to improve the whole security system. So and also on the other side, all the industries also try to invest more in the R&D and also to try to be more innovative to not only for the technology development, also for the business model upgrade. So it's happening in China, but still we cannot see a very clear picture of the solution to the upgrade of the whole economic structure. For the business schools, and how we can deal with such a challenge, for my school, actually, on the one side, we still encourage our students to grasp the fundamental knowledge. So we still push them to seriously study very fundamental knowledge, which are applied anywhere, not only in the Western countries, but also in China. But further, we try to develop our talents to be more internationalized because they know they are facing the international competition in mainland China also. And many of my students would like to work in the foreign investment companies. So they also have to know or understand the foreign culture or international business practice. And also they would like to be prepared for the future to work in the other countries, not only because Chinese companies would like to go out, but also they would like to be promoted to the headquarters in the region or even in the global market. So they would like to be prepared for working anywhere. And also, we want them to be visionary, to take the responsibility of the rising of the China. So they have to care about the country. They have to be more responsible for the society no matter they are working in China or maybe working in the other countries. So social responsibility is also a key issue now in the Chinese business education sector. And also, we want them to develop the global leadership. That means they need to work in China and also work in any other countries. So when we talk about the global leadership, that means they have to know about global economic structure, international business practice, and also they have to develop cross-cultural communication skill, and also they have to spend some time of exploring the local insights when they work in the local market. So this is the key for them to be successful in the future. So we probably are facing the same challenge maybe the other economies may face, and also have a very unique challenge also, especially for the young professionals. I just point out one issue that one child, one family policy, which has some very negative social impact. Because when one child was growing up in the family, he or she actually caused a lot of attention from the parents, for grandparents. He or she definitely has been spoiled before they actually enter into the college, enter into the university. So they are probably a lot of self-centric, a little bit kind of isolated, when they grew up, in their family, even in the school. They are spoiled by everyone, any stakeholders. So how we can develop them to be more social responsibility, more care about the others, and also can have kind of the spirit of teamwork and also the leadership for the organization. That's the real challenge. It's not easy for only one school to transform. So the whole society in China actually is facing such a challenge. So if we cannot work together very well to change the mind of such a new generation, we are very worried about the future of the China, because we could lack our leadership for the enterprises, private sector, state-owned companies, and also the government. So that's also the challenge we are facing now.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Dean Klimkowski.
Since this is going to be on YouTube, I think I better start off by saying that my remarks do not represent the Korean Stock Exchange. But I would reconfirm what they said. And I'll try to talk about a couple of different issues. First of all, I've had the opportunity to live in Korea for the last 8 years, and we've had this wonderful relationship with MIT for those 8 years. But Korea is kind of a unique place. Korea is sandwiched in between Japan and China. Korea has 80% of their GDP either imported or exported. So it's a huge, huge trading company. So you talk to the Korean companies, which I do a lot. One of their big issues is currency. And that is maybe the biggest issue they have in Korea. Since I've been in Korea, the won has been as strong as 900 to $1 and as weak as 1600 to $1. So that kind of plays havoc with these corporations that export a lot. And you take a company like Samsung, 80% of its revenues are outside of Korea today. So that's an issue in a small country like Korea. That is a huge export country. 40% of their GDP is exported. The other big issue in Korea is still the governance issue. The chaebols still they're losing power. They're losing influence in a lot of ways, but they have a ways to go. And governance of the corporations is still an issue. The family thinks that because they still have 3 or 4% ownership, it's still their company. I won't go into a lot of details, but you've heard about some of the situations in Korea. So that has to change going forward. They have to get the governance on a global standard, and that has not happened in Korea yet. The other thing is I belong to something called the Seoul Club, which I take out Alan there to have a few beers now and then. But most of the CEOs, expat CEOs, and Korean CEOs belong to the Seoul Club, so I talk a lot with some of the issues that they face. And one thing I hear from a lot of corporations continuously is the problem of capacity or overcapacity. As an example, somebody told me this, that in the world we have the capacity to make 90 million cars, and we're selling 60 million cars in the world. So there's too much capacity in almost every sector of the economy, almost every industry. And the only place you don't see it is for these, in the high-tech area and so forth, where it's very innovative and so forth. But some of the older, more mature industries, capacity is a real problem or a real global challenge for a lot of these companies. The other thing I hear a lot about today, after the financial crisis and after the earthquake and tsunami in Japan and so forth, is what companies have come to realize that this world is very complex, it's very interconnected. And what happens in Japan can affect the rest of the world. What happens with the financial system in the United States can affect the rest of the world. So I think people are trying to get a hold of how complex, interconnected the world is and how contagion can go from risk can be spread from one sector, one country to another sector. People were surprised when a bank in Germany failed because of what happened with the mortgage market in the United States. And Asia was kind of isolated from the financial meltdown that the US and UK had in Europe. But still, I think people are starting to realize how interconnected and how risky everything is. And what I believe is we don't have enough information to understand how complex and interconnected everything is and how we can manage it. I think it's a problem for everybody that's global. And I think as the world has gotten more globalized, I think it's become a bigger and bigger problem. So that's some of the things I hear from corporations. Some of the other things I'll throw out as future problems. When we went into the financial crisis, the derivatives markets were a $600 trillion market. Today, they're $700 trillion. Now, you've heard about AIG and so forth, but AIG is an example of how interconnected complexity can take a company down. AIG was a AAA-rated insurance company in the United States. You had an office in London making these trades on insuring CDOs and so forth, and I don't think headquarters really knew what was going on there. And that's just an example of this complexity that these global corporations face today. So as we get more global, I think you're going to see more and more problems that were not forecastable, not predictable. In fact, I talk to a lot of business people, and one of the big things they read now is about black swans. That there are a lot of events that are improbable, unpredictable, but huge impact when they happen. And I've kind of believed in efficient markets for a number of years, but after the technology bubble burst and the financial crisis and so forth, I guess I'm kind of a black swan guy now, without question. So there are other issues that we can talk about later, but I think these are the things I hear about when I talk to CEOs in Korea and the United States.
Thank you. So you heard three views, and to give sort of one sentence summary, it is the nexus between the economic and the political that keeps Nakia awake at night, I suppose. And then Jiangwen's his assessment that the rest of the world, here we always think, oh, the Chinese are coming and that type of taking over the world, but the issues that worry him, I think, are very pragmatic in the sense that how can we make each and every individual, how can we have the fruits of growth to reach to the masses over there and raise the well-being of the collective population over there, even though collectively China might be or is doing exceedingly well. And then that brings home the point that Bob is making, which is that, well, Koreans, I mean, in some ways they have arrived in the sense that 50 years ago, Korea was a less developed country, whereas now it is at more or less at par with the developed countries, and countries like China and India and others are thinking, how can we leapfrog at a faster pace? But when you do leapfrog, I think you face a very complex world, and that's the point that Bob is highlighting. But let me take this opportunity to see what questions, comments the audience might have. We do have microphones, so, and you are on YouTube, I suppose. You will be.
I'd like to take your word on the black swan. One thing is pretty clear, at least for me. None of these beautiful institutions out of which we come and that you are leading saw the meltdown coming. Is this what you meant, Bob, when you said there'll be more of that stuff, and we, the dean, those who make the leaders, cannot really anticipate, predict, or train our individual to at least manage this situation, because it's a big disappointment what happened to all of us in 2008 and 9. So what is your position on that?
May I request you to introduce?
My name is Alan Gendley. I'm a Swiss national. I work for a Swiss company. I've worked in North America for this company for many years, and I'm a Sloan Fellow of 91, the best class of that.
Without a doubt.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. One thing, I think there's going to be less emphasis and less trust and less credibility in mathematical financial models and economic models. So what we have done in the classroom since the financial crisis is we've tried to teach our students to be more skeptical about the models, to be very skeptical and at least aware of the assumptions of the model. And I think that wasn't being done prior to 2008. I mean, all the collateralized debt obligations and all these default swap deals were all based on the assumption, well, a couple big assumptions. One is that house prices wouldn't go down. Hadn't happened since the 30s. Faulty assumption. Plus, there's a lot of correlation assumptions built into the Lee model and so forth. So that's, the models are not going to go away, but I think people will going forward, at least for another decade, will be very skeptical of the models. And what I've seen develop since 2008, 2009 is a lot of the models are bringing in behavioral aspects. They're getting away from the rationality assumption that you and I are rational and trying to bring in some of the behavioral biases that exist among individuals. Plus, I think even at Chicago, I think the efficient market idea is taking a big hit, and I don't think most people going forward will not believe that markets are perfectly efficient. There might be matters of degree, but that's kind of what we do at Sungkyunkwan and SKK Graduate School of Business.
Is this on? My name is Dick Santagati. I'm a Sloan Fellow, 1979. We were the best class until his class came along, I guess. But that happens with everything in life. I'm a retired college president, and now I sit on corporate boards and do some consulting. I'm more curious about the nature of the relationship between and among you and with MIT. I mean, we're here together, so I mean, do you meet once a year or once every 10 years and you kind of give your spiel and then you go off and you do your own things? I realize you work in different environments. I mean, and that's part of, I think, the point you were all making earlier. But nevertheless, I don't know if it's best practices or models. Do you have any interaction? And in the nature of your relationship, with MIT. I'm interested in that.
Let me see if Jangwon wants to give his version of it, and then I will tell you the actual version.
Yeah, we really, appreciate such a partnership with Sloan for so long time. Actually, our partnership started from 1995, and actually, I also was in Sloan for one semester in 1996. That means, we send our faculty members to be here, to be developed, to how to teach MBA in the classroom, because Chinese MBA education started in 1991. At that time, we could not tell the difference between the Master of Science and MBA, because we recruit students, even they have some work experience, but we don't know how to teach them, and also change their kind of the perception of the business, and also give them a very practical knowledge. When our colleagues are here, they sit in the classroom to watch how the Sloan professors teach in the classroom, and also our colleagues work with the host professors to develop the syllabus and also to prepare the teaching materials, any kind of cases, and then they bring those stuff back to the Fudan. And also based on the Sloan MBA's curriculum, we redesigned our curriculum. Very similar, but also we added some kind of the Chinese elements. So during the last 16 years, we have been keeping learning from the Sloan curriculum of MBA education, and also we transfer such a knowledge back to Fudan. So all the faculty who teach in our international MBA program, which is sponsored by Sloan, have to be trained here for one semester. So in this way, our international MBA program in China is kind of the flagship program in the domestic market. And also, we leverage our international MBA programs knowledge to our Chinese programs and also to other schools in China. So in this way, Sloan has helped Fudan develop our faculty members and sponsor our students, and also some professors fly to Shanghai to give some lectures, seminars, and also some students also now go to Shanghai to work with our Fudan students for some special projects like China Lab projects. So both students form a team to work on a special project, and also they give some the real suggestion of business plan to the company. So we have a lot of such an exchange between students, and also students are benefiting from such a cross-cultural learning. So this is the very basic model of our collaboration, and also we are very benefited from such a collaboration. And also, through such a collaboration, we also have learned a lot from Sloan about the philosophy of MBA education. For example, leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship. So in my school, we also now have developed a lot of such programs to trigger the entrepreneurship of the MBA students. Usually, Chinese students, especially in Shanghai, would like to work for the multinational companies as professionals. But now more and more students would like to start their own business. So entrepreneurship, innovation now are very popular topics in my school. So we also offer a lot of help, some workshops, some seminars, some business plan competition, and also the mentorship of alumni to help our current students to think about their future business. So we also bring a lot of the philosophy of the MBA education into my school. So that's the basic model.
Please.
Every relationship's a little different. MIT faculty come to Sungkyunkwan University, 3 or 4 come every year to teach. We do send our faculty here for research semesters. We also send our students here. Our students can come here and spend a semester and transfer the credits back and get a degree from SKK Graduate School of Business. Or we've participated in the new Master of Management Science. So we send students here. They spend 1 year with us. They spend 1 year here, and they get 2 degrees. So that's been a very popular part of our program. And SP was the first Sloan faculty to come over and teach in our program back in 2004, I believe it was. So they've been there from the beginning.
I'm the newest. We're the newest partner school. We just signed the agreement. But what we're hoping for is, as a university that was established in 1999, our classes started. We've already built a very good reputation in Turkey, but the issue is we're impatient, right? There are so many things we need to do and so much more we want to learn. And we believe that through this collaboration with Sloan, at a school where many of my faculty are assistant professors, U.S. trained many of them, but assistant professors, that in working with the faculty here, that will be able to sort of speeden up, if you will, their development as researchers. And we have a number of other things we're going to be doing, like participation in the dual degree program, bringing in our executive MBAs over here. So there are many things we're looking to do. And I'm also hoping that we'll do some things together, the partner schools. We're having breakfast tomorrow, and we'll be talking about that as well. But yeah.
What you have heard, well, first of all, we are enriched. MIT Sloan as a school, we have been enriched throughout these partnerships, because these partnerships have given our faculty and our students an opportunity to actually experience what it is to be working, teaching, and learning in different cultural, corporate environments. So I'm most grateful for that. You also heard what they talk about is the bilateral relationship between the individual institution and MIT Sloan. But the next stage that we are hoping, and to which Nakia alluded to, is how can we have a network effect? How can all of us benefit from each other collectively, as opposed to these relationships being more as a hub and spoke, with MIT being the hub and these individual institutions. That's how we started, but that's not where we want to finish. And our goal is that we have a multilateral relationship that benefits, and all of us are able to leverage from that collective relationship.
Yes. Hello, my name is Jorge Forteza. I'm a master's of 82. I now teach and do research on corporate strategies in Brazil and Argentina. And I have a question for our distinguished dean from Turkey. The issues we are facing in Brazil and Argentina, I found your comments extremely interesting. How do you move to competing at a higher value-added level once that your production costs become higher? The issue of internationalization, and the whole question: how do you transform a corporation which has normally been built maybe around relatively lower value industrial goods or lower value consumer goods into something, as you said, that moves a little bit higher the value-added chain, even though we know we cannot become overnight Korean companies, which are innovation intensive. So I was very interested in maybe getting some more comments on your side. What we're finding also is that most of the body of knowledge that exists on internationalization is not extremely useful for this, because it was mostly built from the experience of developed country multinationals going into emerging countries, and that there's very little, and we're in still very early stages, about how do you take and start building multinationals from emerging countries, which are a little bit down the value chain, do not have a lot of R&D, do not have brands, as you say. So I was interested in getting a little bit more of your comments about, as a business school, how do you propose to expand that body of knowledge?
Thank you very much for that question. In a number of ways. One, as you say, we don't have the research basis coming from emerging markets. So part of it is to be a research-oriented university where I have faculty looking at these issues. So that's one. Two, we're very involved with actually one of my top competitor in Turkey. We have a government-funded program where we are training managers from small and medium-sized enterprises. The name of the program is True Quality, and the idea is, what can these companies be doing to become more innovative and to begin to develop global brands? And so we take that role very, very. It's a key thing that we do. Nationally, Turkey has a national innovation initiative, which actually was modeled out of a similar initiative here in the U.S. My university serves as the secretariat for that. So looking at things that the government can do in terms of changing certain government policies. There are lots of issues at the institutional level that need to change to help innovativeness. And then one thing that I'm very proud of that we're doing at our university, and that I think the MIT Sloan connection will help, is that Turkey has a history of great engineers. Every parent wants their son or daughter to study engineering, historically. This has been, but we haven't been as good in connecting those innovative, those engineering findings, if you will, and connecting them with business, marketing, finance, and creating new enterprises. And so we're trying to do a lot more of that. My university, Sabanci, again, something I'm very proud of, is that we're very good on the practice theory and very good with our corporate connections. But I need to do a lot more in reaching out to my engineering faculty. And being here just these last few days has been giving me some ideas. So I hope this answers a bit of what we're doing. There is a lot more that has to be done. If there are any PhD students here, this is a good topic to study. It's certainly one of the hot topics of this generation, is these new multinationals from emerging markets and how they're going to internationalize. I fully agree with you.
I guess this is my turn?
Yes.
I'm my own. I'm Jim Stoner, 6167. Thank you so much for being here. The last comment about engineering made me so jealous because I'm in a university that doesn't have an engineering school. And I'm heartbroken. And some of my best Turkish friends are engineers, of course. I don't know exactly how to ask this question because I've got a problem. I'm sitting here sharing my chair with a 385-pound gorilla who keeps burping and making noises and doing things I don't like. And he's a metaphor for the CO2 parts per million. I know that is in the atmosphere. And I know a little bit about what 3 of your universities are doing in the domain of climate change and global sustainability and teaching, but not very much about what you're doing. So I have a question for each one of you. What issue, situation, or problem is likely to have a greater impact on your students, their companies, your country, and the world than the broadly defined climate change, global unsustainability situation we have? And if you're willing to go further, what percentage of your faculty knows enough about the realities of our situation to be able to make appropriate decisions about what they teach, what they research, and how they serve your country and the world?
I will start.
Please.
Here. We signed the Principles of Responsible Management Education. In fact, one of my faculty members was involved in the drafting of that. And so that's sort of at the dean level of saying this is important and that we should be doing more. I'm trying personally to do as much as I can. We filed the report. At our university, we are the home in Turkey of the group that collects data on carbon disclosure. So we are sort of the home of that. Is it enough? No. But I think we're on the right track. We just went through AACSB accreditation, which I don't know, those of you that are outside of business school academia, this is sort of a universal quality stamp that looks at everything you're doing in terms of teaching and research and the like. And about 5% of the business schools around the world have this. And we, hopefully in July, it will be officially announced. We just went through our peer review. But one thing that was very gratifying about that visit is we have a business ethics class. We have certain things. But I was worried as a dean how much these questions were integrated to the classes. And they actually responded in the report that they found that issues around sustainability were being discussed in classes across the curriculum. And this made me happy. But I totally agree with you. We've done this much. We have more to do, but we've started. Let me say that. And Turkish business all the way. This is one of the positives of globalization, is that a Turkish business executive no longer just sits in Istanbul or Ankara or Antalya. They go to international meetings where other executives are talking about it, and they're asked. Güler Sabanci, my chair of my board of trustees, is asked what she's doing on sustainability. And so now it's getting to be much more on the forefront of the corporate agenda as well. So I agree with you.
But all of the MBA programs have courses on social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, sustainability. We have a course. But to get to your question, how many faculty members really know where the tipping points are and so forth? Not many. Not many.
So let me, just comment on that. Clearly at MIT, there has been a tremendous amount of interest on issues surrounding sustainability, social entrepreneurship, whether it is global warming or green energy. And there's also a marriage between technology, science, and management, and a large number of projects are taking place, research is taking place. Many of our students, in fact, many of these action learning labs, as we call them, they are centered around social entrepreneurship and sustainability. And all of these are matter of great pride. For me personally, just to see that the student body and faculty are interested in a set of activities, set of issues that are bigger than making a good salary next month or next year. Now that said, I'm a pragmatic guy. I don't want to impose that on each and every one. And I'm not going to say that everyone, we know for a fact that this might be something that 5%, 10%, or 20%, or 25% of the student body does, and that's fine by me. I think our role as a School of Management and management education imparting institution is to make them aware of a range of issues that are important, of varying degree of importance, and then they have to make a decision as to what are the challenges that they want to take on and work on. So we are not going to require all the students to work in a particular thing, or nor are we going to require all the faculty. At the same time, I think I would be remiss and I would feel ashamed if we said that we are not even acknowledging these issues, or we are not even aware of these issues. No, far from it. There is very active amount of work that does take place, and as I said, I'm very proud of that. At the same time, there is considerable degree of freedom, and different people choose to work on different sets of issues.
But I think MIT is a very different school than most of the schools. I'm on the accreditation board that just accredited her university, and so I see universities throughout the world. But you had a question about innovation and sustainability and entrepreneurship. I mean, MIT is up here, and I think everybody else is down here. So when you come to MIT, you come to a very special place with special emphasis that most MBA programs can't do and don't do at this point in time, for sure.
Excuse me? Yeah, I also would like to give some comments from the Chinese perspective. Actually, in my school, we had a lot of discussion about how to balance maintaining the growth of the economy as well as protecting the environment. And also, we don't. I think the global warming so far has not been well justified, even though we still would like to encourage our students to care about the environment and also to care about the possible change of climate. Actually, all the professors in my school have decided to include the business ethics and also social responsibility elements into as many as possible, into as many courses as possible. So probably Fudan School of Management is the first school in China to offer the course of business ethics and also social responsibility. But it's not, one course is not enough. So we actually encourage our colleagues to spread over such a philosophy of sustainable growth and environment protection into the different courses. And also we encourage our students to apply such a belief and a philosophy into practice. They actually have developed a lot of such activities and also to establish some clubs to promote such a concept. Within their program in their students and activities, also they bring such concepts out of the school. They go to different provinces, villages, towns to help local small medium companies, to help some local high school, primary schools. So they do a lot of such practice to justify if such a ethics, such a belief could be implemented in China, in the Chinese situation. We actually have a very good effect on such a build-up of the belief of the environment protection among our students. So I think we can, as a business school, we can do no more than what we can. That means when we are blamed by some government or industry, then the business schools always contributes to some disaster or crisis of the economy. But it's not fair because when the students come to school at the age of 25, 27, or 30, or even 40, their kind of the philosophy or kind of the mindset already has been developed. How we can change their mindset within just 2 years? It's not possible, basically. But we have to take the responsibility because most of our students probably get their last degree from the business schools, MBA or EMBA, Master of Science, or even the bachelor degree. So we have the responsibility to do something, to do our best to build up such a ethic belief. But if the whole society, the whole global community cannot take the action together to educate our young generation, probably we will have more crises in the future. So that's also our thinking. So how we can try our best. So if each school, the business school, or the other engineering schools, or the other, even the industries themselves can do more. Usually, the students, when they get degree, their education is not done. They will continue their education in the practice, in the business, in the industries. Most kind of such disbehavior or kind of the misbehavior actually is created by the business, not by the business schools. So I think the whole society should work together on this. So that's also the consensus we share among our faculty members and also among our students. So we just can try our best.
Thank you. With that message of collective responsibility for all of us, let me conclude this session. I know there are many other questions, and the topic is of great interest, and we could continue, but I think lunch is. We would be standing between you and lunch, so I don't want to do that. And I want to thank Youngwen and Nakia and Bob for taking the time to come here and spend time with the audience here. And thank you very much for participating in that. And finally, once again, thank you for the Porter family for their generosity. Thank you.